Everyone called it a trash game, unfair, unbalanced, and impossible to beat. But for Jinhyuk, it was his only escape. 11 years later, the game merges with reality, and suddenly, every monster, every trap, every nightmare he survived, is now real. But this time, he's got the most broken power of them all, the ability to copy any skill. The story begins with the faint hum of a computer filled the dim room. On the monitor, the flickering light of a virtual world cast eerie shadows across a young man's face. A voice, mocking, disembodied, echoed from the speakers. Another MMORPG, huh? Just another broken mess. Clunky controls, dull mechanics, who even plays this garbage? The young man leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. The pale glow of the screen reflected in his tired eyes as he mumbled, "You're not wrong." On screen, heroes charged toward an enormous tower, a structure so vast it seemed to pierce the heavens. The game's title glimmered faintly in the corner, Tower of Challenges. "This one fits the description perfectly," he muttered, voice laced with irony. He remembered how, when the game first launched, it swept through Korea like wildfire. Veteran gamers, old-timers, as he called them, had made it their life's mission to conquer this digital monstrosity. They stopped eating, sleeping, even living normally, all for the sake of a climb no one could finish. But 3 years later, the truth was undeniable. Tower of Trials, he said, eyes narrowing, isn't a game. It's punishment. Images flashed through his mind, endless dungeons, lethal traps, grotesque monsters that devoured players in seconds. The Great Gate Guardian, an enemy so powerful it had been branded invincible. The polar region, where temperatures plummeted to -60 degrees, freezing even the strongest adventurers within hours. And the labyrinth, a maze that stretched over 10,000 kilometers, an endless loop of despair. This wasn't entertainment, he whispered. It was torture. Anger surged. With a shout, he yanked off his virtual reality headset and hurled it to the ground. The screen flickered, static crackling as the game world faded to black. The company almost went bankrupt after that, he said under his breath, recalling the chaos, walls shattered, blood and debris scattered in his memories of those who'd pushed too far. But a few maniacs still refused to quit. And among those maniacs was Jinhyuk. His breath came ragged, sweat dripping down his temples. The tower's summit loomed behind him, 50 floors conquered, and the final system notification blinked before his eyes. Congratulations. Player Jinhyuk has cleared the Tower of Challenges. He blinked at it in disbelief. Did I really do it? Blood trickled from his palm, his body trembling. I wasn't even trying to win, he murmured. I was just curious. But Jinhyuk wasn't like the others. He hadn't brute-forced his way through. He had memorized every pattern, learned every trick, and repeated every failure until perfection was all that remained. 11 years. 11 years of his life spent climbing this cursed tower. As he stepped through the final exit, he turned back, staring at the now silent behemoth. I didn't think I'd actually clear it all, he said softly, a laugh escaping him. Should have at least streamed it. That would have made for a hell of a finale. He opened his virtual interface, debating aloud, should I upload the ending to YouTube? Even a flop would get a few clicks. Just then, a glowing envelope icon materialized beside him. Curious, he opened it. Thank you for playing Tower of Challenges, Jinhyuk. System notice, major reboot update scheduled in 12 hours. He chuckled. A reboot? After all this time? A smirk tugged at his lips. How much are they even spending on this thing? Leaning against the cracked wall behind him, he laughed again, tired, amused, maybe even a little sad. They must be planning something big. But whatever it is, I'm done. No more towers for me. The world around him began to collapse, the virtual sky fracturing, the floor disintegrating beneath his feet. He closed his eyes. No matter what update you roll out, he muttered, I'm not coming back. Moments later, the headset came off. The illusion shattered, replaced by the cramped mess of his apartment. Stacks of instant noodle cups and energy drink cans littered his desk. Plastic bags overflowed with trash. The only light came from the moon filtering through his window. He stretched, groaning. Guess it's time for my last broadcast, he said with a wry smile. Not that it matters. No family, no real obligations, just me and 500,000 won a month. As he stood by the window, the cool night air brushed against his face. Stars twinkled faintly above the city, far beyond his reach. People used to tell me to become a fighter, he said quietly. But right now, money's worth more than glory. The moon hung high in the sky, and for the first time in a long while, Jinhyuk allowed himself to just breathe. The faint hum of his PC echoing through his messy apartment. Empty cans, snack wrappers, and boxes of half-eaten food cluttered the table. He had just gone live, and within 3 minutes, over 20 people had already joined his stream. The chat immediately exploded. "Why re you streaming so early, dude? Did you forget the schedule again? Yo, what's with all that food? You throwing a party?" Jinhyuk chuckled as he scrolled through their teasing comments, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of his monitor. On his desk lay a ridiculous feast: chips, ramen, fried chicken, and a lineup of sodas and alcohol bottles. His viewers laughed even harder. "Streamer buffet. Look at this man living the dream. How's your liver holding up, bro?" For a moment, it was all just light-hearted fun. The kind of cozy chaos that filled Jinhyuk's lonely nights. But then, the smile faded from his face. His expression hardened. He leaned toward the mic. "Everyone, there's something I need to tell you." The chat went wild with confusion. "Wait, what's wrong? Why do you sound so serious? You're not quitting, are you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared quietly at the monitor, his hand gripping a mug of alcohol. Then, with a forced laugh, he said, "Relax. I'm just catching the mood." He raised the mug and took a long drink before exhaling heavily. But as he looked at the screen again, his voice dropped low. "Still, tomorrow, I'll make it official. I think it's time to wind this down." The chat froze for a moment, disbelief flooding in. Then came a stream of desperate messages, but Jinhyuk barely read them. He kept drinking. One bottle. Then another. Then a third. Hours passed before he finally passed out on his bed, surrounded by the empty bottles. When he woke, sunlight was filtering through the blinds. His head throbbed violently, his stomach churned. "Damn hangover," he groaned, dragging himself up from the bed. "I need to post that Tower Clear video before I forget." He pressed the power button on the PC. The familiar hum started up, but something felt wrong. The monitor flickered. His eyes widened. A live stream window appeared automatically. The title read, "Tower of Trials became reality, live." "What the," he muttered. Then he saw the viewer count. 331,750. The man who started the stream said that, "This tower is from Tower of Trials launched 11 years ago." The numbers climbed rapidly as the screen's colors distorted, fading into a blood-red hue. The chat box vanished, replaced by a strange static sound. This can't be real," Jinhyuk whispered, staring at the glowing red symbols flashing across the screen. He recognized it instantly. That effect only appeared when someone started the Tower of Challenges for the first time. But that was impossible, the servers were long gone. Then, a clear system notification appeared in front of his eyes, not on the screen, but in real life. System notice: the first stage of the new Tower of Challenges update has been completed. Before Jinhyuk could even react, the world outside darkened. The daylight vanished, replaced by a deep crimson sky. The city was swallowed by shadows, and all power shut down. Then another message appeared, not just to him, but to everyone. Mothers, children, office workers, all over the world, people froze in terror as glowing text appeared before their eyes. All players must reach the next floor of the tower within 90 days. Failure to do so will result in the destruction of humanity. Jinhyuk's chair toppled over with a crash. His breathing quickened. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he stared at the window. Adaptation level increasing. Reality synchronization, complete. "What the hell?" he whispered, trembling. "Humanity, destroyed?" The next message confirmed his worst fear. First phase of the tower update, complete. His room was empty now, except for the overturned chair and the faint flicker of his monitor. Jinhyuk's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. "You need to stay calm." But his shaking hands betrayed his words. He snatched his jacket from the chair, threw it on, and rushed toward the door. If the Tower of Challenges really became real, he thought, then there's no time to hesitate. He sprinted down the apartment stairs, jumping 3 steps at a time, until he was leaping over entire flights. His pulse raced. His face twisted into a wild grin. "The world might be ending," he said breathlessly, "but I've already cleared it once." Outside, the city was chaos. Sirens blared. People screamed. The once bright skyline was burning red under the blood-colored sky. In Central City, panicked voices filled the streets. "The sky's gone red. We need to get out of Korea. There's no point, the towers are everywhere." One girl held up her phone, showing the same glowing message hovering in the air. "Look, every country's getting it." Jinhyuk dashed past the crowd and into the subway station. He stopped at the top of the stairs, breathing heavily as he looked down into the darkness. "Now's not the time to run," he told himself. "It's time to move forward." He hurried down the steps, mind racing. If the tower has appeared for real, then I need to reach the North Zone first. That's one of the few safe territories outside the tower's boundary, and it's the closest. At the bottom of the stairs, a massive fountain stood, marble angels frozen mid-flight. Above it, a sign glowed faintly, Central Underground. Suddenly, a new notification appeared before his eyes. You have entered an event area. Jinhyuk looked around. The underground station was filled with people, dozens of them, all wearing the same stunned expression. He recognized their faces. These were players who had once played the first version of the Tower of Challenges. He walked among them calmly, his eyes sharp. The others glanced at him but stayed silent, too busy sizing each other up. Everyone's watching everyone else, he thought. No one knows what's going to happen next. He realized something important: the number of event items that would appear here was limited. If luck was on his side, maybe 5 would spawn at most. Then, from behind him, a voice called out, clear and familiar. Hey, you there! You're Jinhyuk, right? Jinhyuk turned, his eyes narrowing as the sound of the city's chaos echoed above. The tower had begun. Jinhyuk turned around, startled by the sudden voice behind him. A man stood there with a broad grin plastered across his face, as if seeing an old friend brought him genuine delight. Well, isn't this a miracle? The man laughed. The shut-in gamer himself actually stepped outside. I thought you'd still be in your room, playing with your toys. It was Jong-soo, a BJ, broadcast jockey, from Paprika TV, boasting over 500,000 subscribers, a celebrity streamer and, more importantly, the representative of the company Jinhyuk once belonged to. Jinhyuk's expression hardened. Shouldn't you be doing a live broadcast right now? He asked coldly, glancing at the crowd gathered behind Jong-soo. Jong-soo followed his gaze, his smirk widening. What, this? You can't tell what's happening here? Looks like the perfect scene for another viral broadcast. He gave Jinhyuk a light push on the shoulder, pretending to be casual. So, tell me, what floor did you reach? And why hide it from your dear colleague? Colleague? Jinhyuk repeated in his head, his jaw tightening. He remembered those broadcasts all too well, the company that Jong-soo had built. A company that lured streamers with promises of fame and fortune, only to drown them in unfair contracts. The more they streamed, the deeper they sank into a swamp of debt and exploitation. And those who dared to protest? Their voices were silenced, crushed beneath the weight of corporate greed. Jinhyuk recalled one desperate BJ, crying during a live broadcast. He had stared directly into the webcam, before ripping it off the monitor and hurling it at his contract in despair. That memory burned deep inside Jinhyuk. Because one by one, the friends he had started with, those who had climbed up from nothing beside him, had all abandoned the company, broken and betrayed. Hey, Jong-soo's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He grabbed Jinhyuk's shoulder, smiling brightly. I know you're a great player. And your mukbangs? Legendary. That's why, he leaned in. I'm ready to change your contract. Just for you. But Jinhyuk's eyes were as cold as winter steel. The world's changed, he said quietly. Before Jong-soo could respond, BAM. Jinhyuk's fist slammed into his face. Blood sprayed from Jong-soo's nose as 2 of his teeth hit the ground with a faint clink. Watch your mouth, Jinhyuk growled. Jong-soo collapsed, clutching his bleeding face, groaning in pain. Jinhyuk looked down at him, his voice low and calm. Strange. I actually feel better now. Turning away, he walked off, muttering, it's time. Around the nearby fountain, particles of light began to shimmer. The water started bubbling, then roiling violently. In a sudden burst, a massive tree erupted from the fountain, its trunk twisting skyward, its lush green canopy radiating power. The air trembled with its presence. Players gasped in awe and terror. The same as the Tower of Trials, Jinhyuk murmured, a grin forming on his lips. So my memory was right? A glowing message appeared before everyone's eyes. The mangrove of greed continues to grow. From its branches, red fruits began to bloom, glimmering like rubies under a warm aura. Jinhyuk's eyes narrowed. Stats boosting fruits. Agility, strength, mana, only 4 of them. The moment those words sank in, chaos erupted. Players lunged for the tree, clawing and shoving each other to reach the fruits. Fists flew, boots kicked, and screams filled the air. Amid the frenzy, a bloodied handkerchief dropped to the ground. It belonged to Jong-soo. He staggered toward Jinhyuk, wiping the blood from his mouth. Listen, he shouted, desperation cracking his voice. If we work together, we can share the fruits. Split them in half, win for both of us. Jinhyuk didn't even look at him. His gaze was locked on the tree. Sit down if you don't know what's going on, he said coldly. It's not time yet. His tone was firm, calm, yet commanding. Jong-soo hesitated. Jinhyuk's confident smile didn't falter for a second. One player managed to grab a fruit and bit into it greedily. A system window flashed. Agility +3. It works. It really works, the man shouted, waving his arms in joy. Jinhyuk watched him silently. Ordinary people, he muttered. They have no idea what this tree truly is. He observed as more players climbed, each one consumed by greed, unaware of the danger lurking within. Then it began. The tree's roots writhed like serpents and lashed out, striking the ground with tremendous force. Screams erupted as players scrambled to escape. The more fruits eaten, one terrified man yelled, the more violent it gets. Panic spread. Players fled in every direction, terrified. All except two. Jinhyuk stood still, calm amidst the chaos. Jong-soo, trembling, turned to run, until Jinhyuk's voice stopped him. Giving up already? Of course. Jong-soo shouted. That thing's insane. Jinhyuk sighed. The real reward of this event only appears after all the fruits are eaten. Jong-soo froze. You're serious? Jinhyuk tilted his head. If I wasn't, would I still be standing here? A bead of sweat rolled down Jong-soo's temple. Then, his expression twisted into a crooked grin. So that's why you didn't move, you were waiting for this. He spat to the side, then asked, so what now? Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed with unwavering resolve. We go inside, he said, pointing toward the thrashing tree. If we move together, we'll just become easy targets. Approach from both sides, understood. Jong-soo blinked, stunned by his calmness. You're saying, we split its attention? Exactly. Jinhyuk slipped his hands into his pockets and smiled. The plan had begun. Jinhyuk glanced at Jong-soo, his tone sharp and cold. If even one of us hesitates, he said, eyes narrowing, it's over. Jong-soo chuckled, wiping the blood from his mouth. Relax, man. It's not my first day in this game either. A tense silence followed, then Jinhyuk muttered, move. In the next instant, they split apart, Jinhyuk darting to the left, Jong-soo sprinting to the right. They surrounded the enormous mangrove tree, each taking a different angle of approach. But before they could get close, massive roots burst from the ground, slicing through the air like whips. Jinhyuk twisted his body mid-step, dodging the first root by inches. The sharp wind from its swing grazed his cheek. He turned his head to check on Jong-soo. And froze. Jong-soo stood motionless, grinning like a lunatic. Who would listen to a guy like you, he sneered. Why don't you be the bait? His grin widened into something grotesque. Jinhyuk's eyes hardened, his voice calm but dripping with venom. Still the same scum, huh? Another root shot toward him. He dodged effortlessly, landing light on his feet. To those who become bait, he muttered under his breath, that would be, you. The next root, redirected from Jinhyuk's dodge, snapped toward Jong-soo with deadly precision. What? The thick vine coiled around Jong-soo's legs, yanking him off his feet. Before he could react, the roots wrapped around his torso, tightening like a snake crushing its prey. Why me? Let me go! Jong-soo screamed, thrashing in panic. Jinhyuk didn't even glance his way. His steps were steady, focused solely on the tree ahead. If you hate it, he said coolly, maybe complain to your lawyer. The roots climbed higher, encasing Jong-soo completely. Tears streamed down his face as his voice broke. I don't want to die like this. Please. The tree's roots constricted and crushed him into a bloody pulp. Jinhyuk exhaled slowly. Have a nice trip, trash. He turned back toward the mangrove tree. Its massive roots writhed, sensing his approach. Just a little further, he murmured, his boots splashing in the fountain's water. The ground trembled. Roots lunged again, slicing through the air from every direction. Left, 22 degrees, Jinhyuk whispered, eyes darting rapidly as he calculated each attack trajectory. Right, 35 degrees. He weaved between them like a shadow, his movements precise and fluid. Each dodge was perfectly timed, each motion deliberate. The roots struck where he had just been. But Jinhyuk was gone. They crashed into one another, smashing violently into the trunk instead. Cracks splintered up the bark, ripping open the tree's center. The roots opened a path, Jinhyuk muttered, a wicked grin curling on his lips. Inside the ruptured trunk, a pulsating core glowed, a beating heart of pure magic. The mangrove core, he whispered. Just like in the game. No errors. Not a single deviation. His hand brushed against a broken fragment of a root beside him. He picked it up, the faint glow of power running through it. Scarlet light flared in his eyes. How about we make this interesting? Jinhyuk smirked, raising the fragment like a blade. Let's end this quickly, tree. The mangrove roared, its entire body trembling in rage. The roots rose again, this time shimmering with a dark crimson aura. A message blinked in Jinhyuk's vision. Mangrove of Greed has activated, blood-sucking vines. TCH, he clicked his tongue. Even for an old mob, that's gonna be hard to dodge. The roots lashed forward, slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Jinhyuk's grip tightened. Then, with a twist of his wrist, Clang. He deflected the first root with a dull thud, the shockwave sending a burst of air across the ground. The vine passed so close that it grazed his cheek, leaving a thin red line. The next roots came in a flurry, but Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed with battle focus. Each motion was deliberate, every strike perfectly timed. He flipped his blade fragment, adjusting its angle, redirecting every incoming root like a master swordsman guiding the flow of a storm. In his head, he smirked. I can twist the trajectory, bend it any way I want. The roots clashed, tangled, and tore into the tree's trunk again, destroying it from within. And amidst the chaos, Jinhyuk stood there, his eyes glowing bright red, calm and unshaken. Now then, he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. Let's finish this. The roots of the mangrove shuddered violently, then began twisting together, merging into one monstrous, pulsating limb. The ground trembled as the enormous root reared back like a serpent, its shadow swallowing Jinhyuk whole. Coming for me, huh? Jinhyuk murmured, eyes sharp and calm. No need to get nervous. A faint smirk tugged at his lips. Then, his right eye ignited with a bright blue flame. The massive root lunged. In an instant, Jinhyuk moved. His body blurred, blade flashing as he redirected every incoming strike. The root split apart midair, slamming into the ground around him with explosive force, breaking through concrete and shaking the entire plaza. Dust and debris swirled, but Jinhyuk walked forward, unscathed, his expression composed. Only a thin scratch lined his cheek, glinting under the light. I've been through this 100 times already, he said with a grin, brushing his hair back. He raised his hand. The air around him trembled. Sweat dripped from his brow as he approached the tree's luminous trunk. Behind the dense green canopy, a faint blue light began to shine. Tiny butterflies of azure glow fluttered out from the leaves, spiraling upward like floating stars. Jinhyuk's eyes narrowed. Sleep butterflies. He covered his mouth and nose, stepping aside as the glowing insects circled him. Their wings shimmered softly, releasing glittering dust into the air. Sleep pollen, he thought grimly. A defense mechanism. One breath, and you're out cold. The insects swarmed closer, but Jinhyuk waved them away, holding his breath. The trick's simple, he smirked inwardly. Just don't breathe. He dashed forward, cutting through the haze of shimmering wings. The giant tree loomed ahead, veins glowing red within its trunk. Found you, he whispered. Jinhyuk thrust his palm toward the tree. Boom! A deafening impact echoed through the air. The space rippled with shockwaves, light flaring across the battlefield. Wind whipped through his black hair, strands flying wildly across his face. Sweat beaded on his skin, and a red glint burned in his eyes. From beneath him, roots lashed upward once again, only to falter. The enormous tree groaned, its bark splitting down the center as the system's voice rang in his ears. System message, player, anonymous, has defeated the mangrove of greed. The world tree split cleanly in half, its once vibrant leaves fading to gray. The fountain's water shimmered under the settling dust. Jinhyuk exhaled, a grin spreading across his face. Didn't think all that boring timing practice would actually pay off. The system chimed again. Honor level achievement will be recorded within 24 hours. Please enter your player name. Jinhyuk frowned, staring at the glowing blue window. My name? So it's asking for personal info now? He tilted his head, thinking. Revealing his identity would stir chaos, especially once people realized who he was. No way, he muttered. Anonymity suits me better. A new prompt appeared. Face will be hidden via mosaic. Voice will be altered for anonymity. Jinhyuk chuckled softly. Not perfect, but fair enough. He turned back to the fallen tree, placing his hand on its cracked trunk. Now for the real prize. He pushed his arm deep inside the hollow bark. After a moment, his fingers brushed something smooth and cold. A grin curved his lips as he pulled out a small jade orb, gleaming faintly in his palm. The tree's core, he whispered, tightening his grip. System message, item acquired, heart of the mangrove tree. He rolled the sphere between his fingers, its green glow reflecting in his eyes. If a single fruit boosts strength, agility, and mana by 3 points each, he mused, then the heart should be worth at least 12. The thought made him chuckle. Even after 50 floors, nothing came close to this kind of loot. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk popped the jade sphere into his mouth. The moment he swallowed, a blinding light exploded in his chest. His body trembled as raw energy coursed through him. He opened his status window. Player level, 1. Available stat points, 12. A wicked smile formed. The strongest level 1 player, huh? Not bad. Hours later, the world was already buzzing. Breaking news, unknown player defeats Mangrove of Greed. First victory in the Tower of Challenge recorded. Comment sections exploded with disbelief and excitement. Most people dismissed it as fake, just another online hoax. But somewhere in the chaos, a video quietly began trending. Its thumbnail showed a masked player surrounded by swirling debris. His face was hidden by mosaic. His voice distorted. Yet his presence, the confidence in his stance, was unmistakable. It was Jinhyuk, the first conqueror of the tower's new world. The moment the video of the battle went live, all the skepticism that had flooded the forums vanished in an instant. Viewers flooded the comments with awe and excitement, their disbelief replaced by pure fascination. Clips of Jinhyuk darting between monstrous roots, his blade flashing under the emerald light of the mangrove, began circulating everywhere. He could almost hear the collective gasp of millions watching. Some cheered, others doubted, but one thing was clear: no one could look away. Jinhyuk's lips curved slightly as he watched the reactions roll in. "So this is what all the fuss is about," he muttered, his tone dry but amused. Under the username Kingsman, a man introduced himself as Director Park Hazik, offering Jinhyuk a formal contract. "Join us. Let's make history together." Another user, Black Dragon, followed with an even more audacious promise: "Name your price. I'll match it. Money's no object." Jinhyuk stared at the screen, one brow arching. 1 billion, huh? They really think this is about cash? He leaned back in his creaky chair, the faint glow of his monitor painting his face in blue light. For a brief moment, he was lost in thought, back to the days when life had been a relentless grind. A cheap video camera sat gathering dust on the windowsill. Cold fast food boxes littered the table. Rent overdue. Back then, $1 billion would have been a miracle. He remembered starving for days, saving money just to stream mukbangs instead of eating. But that was before. Before the tower. Before this new world that rewarded skill, not status. Now, as he swirled a half-empty drink in his hand, he whispered, "Even if they offered 10 billion? I'm not sharing what I know." He clenched his fist, smirking. What mattered wasn't wealth, it was monopoly. The power of holding knowledge no one else possessed. Rising from his chair, Jinhyuk opened a map on his phone, the next target already glowing in his mind's eye. A towering structure appeared in his imagination, dark, looming, pulsing faintly with mana. The Tower of Trials had spilled its magic into the world, mutating relics outside into sacred treasures. Behind a glass display case, an ancient sword bathed in light shimmered faintly, like it was breathing. Its edge flickered, vanishing, reappearing, as if the relic itself was rejecting reality. "A replica," Jinhyuk murmured. "But even copies hold power if you know where to look." Soon, he stood before the National People's Museum, its grand steps silent under the night sky. Floating displays of weapons, shields, and scrolls glowed faintly inside, a treasure vault brimming with mana. Jinhyuk frowned. "Of course, I'm not the only one who came for these." The mangrove tree of greed had been rare, appearing in only 7 places across Seoul. But the museum? There was only one. Which meant competition. He imagined silhouettes, skilled players from across the city, veterans and opportunists alike, all drawn to the same place like vultures. Pushing open the museum's door, he felt an eerie stillness. "Quiet," he muttered. "Too quiet." Then his eyes caught it, a charred corpse slumped against a blackened wall. His jaw tightened. Someone had arrived before him. Hands shoved in his pockets, Jinhyuk scanned the area, his expression unreadable. The world's changing, guess people are too. But not fast enough. At the foot of the stairs, faint mana lines pulsed, a sign pointing toward the relics of the Middle and Modern eras. That's where it would be. The relic everyone wanted, the Great East Land Map. It wasn't just a historical artifact. It was alive with mana, humming with data from the Tower of Trials itself, a complete guide to ruins, labyrinths, and hidden treasures. "No one realizes," he whispered, "the real treasures aren't on the map, they're underneath it." Suddenly, a jug crashed to the ground, shattering the silence. Shouts erupted, chaos spilling through the museum. Artifacts exploded in bursts of mana. Blood splattered across the marble floor. Someone screamed, "Freeze!" The young man with black hair, his hand still gripping his opponent's collar, slowly turned. A broad-shouldered man stood across the hall, arms crossed like an executioner. "Anyone moves," he growled, "and you're dead." The boy in the blue shirt scowled back. "Don't talk crap," he said coldly, taking a step forward. The young man with a bandage on his cheek smirked, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think anyone here's scared of that kind of talk?" Blood trickled from the head of his hammer, splattering onto the marble floor. The burly man before him scowled, knuckles cracking as veins bulged beneath his skin. His temper snapped. "You bastards, you really don't get it, do you?" His teeth clenched, eyes glowing a feral red as rage consumed him. With a roar, his muscles bulged, the seams of his shirt tearing apart. The spectators stumbled back as the man's skin darkened into a gray, stone-like texture, his transformation complete. The card belongs to me. His voice now rumbled like an animal's growl. The red gleam in his eyes made even the boldest step away. But an elderly man in a blue vest simply chuckled, closing his eyes. I'm afraid I can't agree to that, son. The transformed man turned toward him, baring his jagged teeth. Are you senile, old man? Disappear before I snap your withered neck. The old man sighed, tapping his cane on the ground as a small flame flickered at his fingertip. So rude. I was hoping for a civil conversation. The fire suddenly flared, brighter, hotter, swirling around his hand. You talk too much, the gray-skinned monster snarled, lunging forward. The old man's eyes opened, cold and sharp. He snapped his fingers. A roaring inferno burst from his palm, swallowing the man whole. The beast scream tore through the air, echoing across the hall. In seconds, his body was nothing but smoldering flesh, a steaming, blackened heap on the floor. The old man clasped his hands behind his back, turning away with a sigh. A pity, he said softly. A disaster born from an unrestrained tongue. A girl with short hair, Yuri, approached from behind him, her expression unreadable. Should I take care of the rest, Mr. John? John nodded. Please. Gather the items. And clean up the mess. Yuri smiled faintly. Of course. You can rely on me. She walked toward a pedestal where a small Anubis statue rested under glass. As she touched it, purple light burst from her eyes, glowing lines spreading around her like veins of lightning. That's enough to handle anyone foolish enough to interfere, she said confidently. The Anubis figurine pulsed with light, golden patterns racing across its surface. A deep growl echoed as a towering, jackal-headed warrior materialized beside her, gripping a long spear. Its eyes gleamed blood-red, its armor forged from shadows. From this point on, Yuri announced, crossing her arms, anyone who moves will be considered an enemy of Anubis. Her voice carried through the silence. The black-skinned warrior lifted its spear, and several of the remaining players froze in place, terror plastered on their faces. We surrender, one shouted, throwing his weapon aside. Take the card. Just don't kill us. Yuri clapped her hands together gleefully. Good choice. But her smile faltered as the sharp crunch of footsteps echoed behind her. Someone had stepped on broken fragments of pottery. Jinhyuk walked forward casually, hands in his pockets, his expression calm and uninterested. What a mess, he murmured, tilting his head as his eyes drifted over the ruined artifacts. You people don't even have basic respect for antiques. He bent down, brushing the dust off a stack of yellowed scrolls. At least they're still intact. That's something. Then he froze. His name echoed across the hall. Yuri hissed, eyes blazing with fury. You think this is funny? Anubis stomped the ground, cracked spiderwebbing across the marble floor. Dust filled the air as Yuri's grin turned feral. Kill him, she ordered. The jackal warrior lunged forward, spear thrusting toward Jinhyuk's chest. But Jinhyuk didn't move. Not an inch. Just as the weapon was about to strike, he flicked his wrist. Clang! The spearhead snapped clean off and clattered behind him. Yuri's eyes widened. What? The floor behind him was split with a deep crack, as though struck by an invisible blade. Two nearby players gawked, their jaws dropping. He dodged that, one whispered. No, he didn't even move. Jinhyuk smiled faintly. You really have no idea how high my stats are, do you? His gaze shifted to the towering Anubis warrior. So, what now? He asked Yuri. You lost your only weapon. But Yuri only smiled back, a sharp, knowing grin. She slung her backpack off her shoulder and began pulling out more figurines, each radiating a different color of magic. Who said I only had one? She taunted. One by one, replicas of other Egyptian deities hovered in the air, Horus, Batet, Set, all glowing with dark power. The air grew heavy, the museum trembling under the surge of mana. The system message blinked before Jinhyuk's eyes. A replica of the sacred relic incarnation of Anubis has awakened. His eyes widened. 5, at once, he muttered, astonished. Yuri stood surrounded by her summoned creatures, her hair whipping in the wind of their aura. What do you think now, Jinhyuk? She sneered. Still feel like laughing? Jinhyuk chuckled softly. Not bad, he admitted. To maintain 5 relics at your level? That's impressive. He tilted his head, raising his hand lazily. If I had to rate you, somewhere between good and acceptable. Yuri's face twisted in irritation. You're acting cool on purpose, aren't you? I hate guys like you. Jinhyuk's smirk vanished. His eyes hardened. Then maybe I should show you what real power looks like. He pulled out a weathered piece of paper, an ancient talisman drawn with a tiger symbol. Let's make this quick. Tossing it into the air, he pressed his palm forward. The talisman ignited with golden light. You have injected mana into the sacred relic replica, Tiger of the Mountain. The system window flickered again. The ruler of the mountain has descended. A blinding light filled the hall as a massive tiger emerged beside him, fur shimmering like molten gold, eyes burning with ancient might. The ground quaked under its paws. Yuri gasped, stumbling back in disbelief. That's impossible. The Anubis warriors raised their spears, roaring. The tiger growled low, baring its fangs. Jinhyuk placed his hand gently on its head, his voice cold and mocking. How dare a jackal bare its teeth before the ruler of the mountains? He pointed toward Yuri and her summons. Dinner served. The tiger roared, a deafening, primal sound that rattled the museum walls. It lunged forward, claws slicing through the air. A single swing decapitated one of the Anubis warriors. The others charged, but the beast was too fast, a blur of gold and crimson. The floor cracked beneath its paws, and the air filled with screams and the stench of burnt mana. Blood sprayed. Shattered armor clattered to the ground. Yuri trembled, sweat streaming down her face as she stared at the carnage. What kind of relic user is he? She had heard of countless relic techniques, but nothing like this. The mana radiating from the tiger alone felt like it could tear her skin apart. A white flash filled her vision. Her knees buckled, and she fell, trembling. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I had the strongest relics, she whispered. But I was wrong. Jinhyuk approached slowly, hands in his pockets, his shadow looming over her. You fought well, he said softly, though his smirk said otherwise. Yuri looked up, pressing a hand to her chest, her voice trembling. What do you want? He stopped right in front of her, eyes glinting. The item, he said simply. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Jinhyuk crouched down beside Yuri, his gaze sharp and impatient. Hand over the mask of Tutankhamun, he said coolly. Yuri's brows furrowed, her voice trembling with frustration. That relic's useless here in Korea. What could you possibly want with it? Jinhyuk didn't bother answering. His eyes narrowed, and with a lazy flick of his finger, he gestured behind her. A massive tiger's head materialized from the shadows, its fangs glinting like daggers. Yuri froze, her breath catching. Oh okay. I'll give it up, she stammered. Among the shattered glass and debris, her open backpack lay spilled on the ground. From it, the golden mask of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh slowly floated into the air. A system notification blinked before Jinhyuk's eyes. Replica relic acquired, Mask of Tutankhamun. He caught the mask with one hand, smirking. Second sacred relic, secured without breaking a sweat. Yuri glared, still shaking. Don't tell me you're after T.Ono's card next? Jinhyuk tilted his head, pretending to think. That's none of your concern, he said flatly, though in truth, he'd completely forgotten about the card. He ran a hand along the tiger's fur and added, make sure no one follows us. The beast bared its teeth in silent understanding, growling low. Wait. Yuri gasped, clutching her chest. Her voice trembled as dark energy seeped from the tiger's paws. Jinhyuk glanced over his shoulder, satisfied. Everything was falling into place. Perfect. Preparations complete, he thought, eyes shifting toward the stone staircase that led higher into the tower. The time's come, he muttered. He raised his hand, eyes fixed on the glowing blue chamber ahead. This was where he'd obtained the tower's most powerful skill. Inside a dimly lit vault, numbers and runes glimmered across the walls. A glowing vase floated beneath a glass barrier. Sweat beaded down the forehead of an old man in a blue vest, John. He glanced nervously at Jinhyuk, still struggling to comprehend how the young man had gotten past Yuri. How did you even manage this? He muttered under his breath. Jinhyuk ignored him, inspecting the radiant wall. Looks like a level 1 barrier. John frowned. So you do know what this is. He pressed his palm to the blue surface. Physical force and magic attacks won't work. It's strange. Jinhyuk extended his hand toward it, eyes half closed. His voice dropped. The flow of mana diverges here, blue smoke swirled from his palm, a faint glyph glowing inside the mist. Then, he whispered a single word. Carpo. Without breaking contact, he turned to John. I can break it, but I'll need your help. John's brows knitted. What kind of help? If you keep channeling flame magic into the barrier, it'll weaken enough for me to enter, Jinhyuk explained. Keep it up until I return with the relic. John arched an eyebrow, smirking. So I stay here, burning through my mana, while you go treasure hunting? Jinhyuk gritted his teeth. If I could attack continuously with that kind of firepower, I'd do it myself. But time's short, dawn's coming. You get the card afterward. Fair deal. John considered for a moment, then sighed. Worst case, I get nothing. But, fine. You have my word, Jinhyuk said with a confident smile. I've no interest in making enemies out of strong mages. John nodded reluctantly. Then I'll trust you, boy. Good. Handle the barrier. Flames roared to life in John's hands, crackling like living serpents. "I'll do what I can," he muttered, forcing more mana into the fiery stream. The barrier hissed, lines of light beginning to fracture under the heat. "Now!" Jinhyuk shouted. "Carpo!" He covered his face and dashed forward, straight through the shattering wall of blue light. Inside, the air shimmered with ancient energy. Glass display cases lined the chamber, each glowing faintly. Sweat dripped down John's face on the other side of the barrier. "Hurry," he yelled. But Jinhyuk only waved with a grin. "Relax, old man. I'll handle this my way." He stuffed his hands into his pockets and surveyed the room. Broken cases, ancient relics, scattered scrolls, except for one corner where a faint glow pulsed under shattered glass. There lay a sword engraved with strange runes, Kayen Long. So someone else was here first, Jinhyuk thought. Smart enough to take what they wanted, and even left a protective seal over the chamber. His eyes gleamed. Interesting. He stepped closer, shadows rippling around him. The faint blue glow pulsed through the ruined chamber as Jinhyuk stepped past the shattered glass and debris. He noticed the faint traces of energy shimmering along the edges of the room, a protective barrier. The previous player had been cautious. Jinhyuk clicked his tongue, unimpressed. So he grabbed what he wanted and bailed, huh? No risks, no curiosity. Typical. He walked up to a fractured display case and began counting the remnants scattered around. Then, suddenly, his eyes lit up. A grin tugged at his lips. Well, found you. Resting on a red velvet cushion was a small pile of glittering gold coins. The system's familiar chime echoed in his ears. Chosun Dynasty coins, C-rank relic, acquired. Jinhyuk held one between his fingers, feeling its warmth. Perfect. The last piece I needed. He turned toward the table, where the mask of Tutankhamun and the ceremonial Persian casting mold were already waiting. Narrowing his eyes, he pressed a finger into the right socket of the pharaoh mask. Instantly, golden energy surged from it, intertwining with the aura emanating from the Persian mold. The room trembled as the relics reacted to one another, bright streams of power swirling like molten sunlight. System notification, a reaction has occurred between the two relics. A mischievous spark danced in Jinhyuk's eyes. Then let's add one more to the mix. He pulled the golden thread connecting the Li coins, and with a sharp tug, it snapped. The coins scattered midair, spinning in the energy storm. The power exploded outward, coating the chamber in a radiant golden haze. Jinhyuk raised his arms to shield himself, his hair whipping from the pressure. System alert, reaction detected among 3 relics. Probability of failure, 97.3%. Processing fusion attempt. His smirk deepened. Come on? I don't fail. Then? Success. Fusion achieved. The air cleared, revealing a new relic floating before him, an obsidian black eyeball encased in golden flame. New relic acquired, Eye of Truth, SS rank. Effect, view another's status window and discern lies from truth. Usable 3 times per day. SS rank, huh? Jinhyuk muttered, admiring the glow. Guess that's a nice bonus, but not why I came here. More system alerts appeared one after another. Hidden quest completed, combine 3 replica relics below Class B to create an SS class item. New personal ability unlocked, Unification. Blue streams of energy swirled around his legs as he felt a strange resonance inside him, threads of mana connecting his body to something larger. He closed his eyes, envisioning a grid of white squares, each one a skill, a power, a memory waiting to be copied and refined. I'll collect every ability this world holds, and fuse them into something greater. This will be my weapon, to climb to the top of the tower. The air pulsed violently. Personal ability registered, Unification. Effect, copy personal abilities of other players, store them within the world's memory, and merge them into higher tier skills. Level, unmeasurable. Blue light flared from Jinhyuk's eyes. Warning, conditions may alter if the user fails to maintain control during absorption. Outside the barrier, John's voice echoed through the chamber, rough with exhaustion. Hey, Jinhyuk! Hurry up, my mana's running out. Sweat poured down the old man's face as fire coiled from his hands, pressing desperately against the blue wall. Inside, Jinhyuk's expression twisted into a grin. Perfect timing. His system window flickered again, displaying the requirements to copy John's ability. Condition, John conceals his emotions deeply. To copy his skill, the target must be forced to reveal genuine feelings. Jinhyuk's grin widened. So all I have to do, is piss you off. John shouted again, straining against the barrier. How much longer, kid? Without turning, Jinhyuk said casually, you probably won't be using that flame magic again, huh? What? John faltered, brows furrowed. Not much point, Jinhyuk added with a shrug. The barrier's already weakening. Besides, I could have done it without you. John's flames flickered, his teeth grinding. What are you saying? The barrier shimmered, cracking like ice under heat. Jinhyuk extended his hand again, whispering the word. Karpo. The destruction spell pulsed through the air, the wall of blue fire splitting apart as he dashed forward, covering his face. The barrier shattered behind him like glass. John stumbled back, panting, completely drained. He stared in disbelief as the barrier crumbled to dust. So, he didn't need me at all. Inside, Jinhyuk exhaled softly, his mind buzzing. Mana nearly gone, huh, old man? Guess I overdid it. He surveyed the room again. A large map hung on the wall, glowing faintly with runic light. So this is the big reward? A map of the tower? His smirk returned. I already know every corner of this place up to the 10th floor. With a flick of his lighter, he stepped closer. Guess I don't need this. John's muffled voice shouted through the barrier, panic lacing his tone. What are you doing, you fool? Jinhyuk's eyes gleamed mischievously as he held the flame to the map. Just cleaning up. The parchment caught instantly, fire racing across it in brilliant orange light. The fire spread quickly, crackling and roaring as it devoured the poster pinned to the wall. That poster contained a detailed map of the first 10 floors of the tower, an invaluable guide for any player. If it was destroyed, every player's advantage would vanish in an instant. Panic rippled through the room. Why would you do this? Old man shouted furiously as the flames consumed the wall. His trembling hands clenched tightly, veins bulging as he swore, I'll kill you bastard, burn you alive, and grind you into dust. But his outburst only made Jinhyuk's eyes glimmer with mischief. Ding! A notification appeared before him. Condition fulfilled. Above the man's head, a glowing blue book materialized. Another alert flashed across Jinhyuk's screen. Skill successfully copied, fire element, rank B. A shimmering, save button appeared before him. Skill saved to the world's memory. Fire element allows control over flames and increases affinity with the fire attribute. Jinhyuk smirked. A fire element, huh? Not bad for my first copy. A fiery orb ignited in his palm, swirling with raw energy. The old man, whose flames he had stolen, growled, You'll regret this, boy. I'll make sure you pay dearly. Still grinning, Jinhyuk asked, Do you even know why I burned that map? The air shimmered. Fire element, level 1 activated. Flames surged up Jinhyuk's arms, dancing wildly. The old man's eyes went wide in disbelief as he watched Jinhyuk wield his own ability, but stronger, sharper, and more precise. Sweat dripped down his temple as realization dawned. This guy, he's no ordinary player. Before he could speak, Jinhyuk cut him off with a sly grin. If you want to survive this tower, old man, you'd better start obeying me. Without waiting for a reply, Jinhyuk turned and descended the stairs. As he walked, he imagined the faces of the other players he had encountered. There were only 4 survivors from the National Central Museum, including himself. Now that the Tower of Trials had become real, everyone was desperate to minimize their risks. Stretching his arms lazily, Jinhyuk muttered, If I want to stay ahead of the pack, I'll need to collect as many personal skills as possible. A translucent blue status window appeared before him, listing his current stats and copied abilities. Satisfied, he crossed his arms, deep in thought. Yeah, I'll take every skill I can get. No matter what it costs. Hovering over the old man, Jinhyuk smirked. Level up with that girl on the first floor. I'll contact you later. The man lowered his head in submission, his brows furrowed with frustration. The girl beside him bit her lip nervously, her hands trembling. To Jinhyuk, they were nothing more than toys, temporary pawns he could use and discard. The skill book in his hand shimmered with a faint blue haze. His path was long and uncertain, but one thing was clear, he needed to gather the most useful abilities before anyone else could. With his hands tucked into his pockets, he mused, I only have one body. I can't monopolize everything, but the best skills? The most broken ones? Yeah, those will be mine. His stomach growled. Ugh, guess that's my limit. Time for some rice soup. He spotted a small cafe and walked in. Inside, the air was tense. The customers were staring wide-eyed at the television screen. The news anchor's voice trembled as she spoke. Breaking news, a fire has erupted at the National Central Museum. Current reports indicate at least 23 dead and over 50 injured. Authorities suspect the attack targeted several ancient relics. The footage cut to scenes of devastation, the museum reduced to rubble. The broadcast continued, similar incidents have occurred across the world, in the United States, Europe, China, and Japan. The Louvre has been destroyed. Jinhyuk leaned back, expression calm. So it's starting worldwide, huh? Guess the players overseas aren't slacking off either. The screen switched to CCTV footage from inside the museum. One frame showed Yuri standing beside Anubis. The next, a man with a blurred face raising his hand. Then, a massive tiger sinking its fangs into an enemy's neck. Gasps filled the cafe. "Is this even real?" one man whispered. "Could a normal person do that?" another asked. "Wait, isn't that the guy from the tower's community video?" Jinhyuk scratched his temple, his eyes narrowing. "Titch, too many people are starting to recognize me. I need to figure out how to hide my identity." On the screen, the anchor continued, "The government is investigating the origins of the mysterious structure known as the Tower of Trials. A special division, the Association of the Awakened, has been established to deal with individuals who possess special abilities." Jinhyuk raised an eyebrow. "Already forming departments, huh? That's faster than I expected." He poured himself a glass of water and thought aloud, "So they've already accepted the tower as part of reality. Impressive. I figured it would take them a few weeks to process it." The broadcast cut to a press conference. A man with a scar on his cheek appeared, introducing himself as Han Sang-jin, the head of the Association of the Awakened. Jinhyuk's expression hardened the moment he saw him. Sang-jin declared, "We are recruiting awakened individuals. Depending on their level, they'll be compensated as government officials, at least grade 7, with an annual salary of 60 million won. Those featured in the tower footage will receive special treatment." Whispers spread across the cafe. 60 million? That's insane. Lucky bastards. What a crazy turn of events, a girl murmured. But Jinhyuk just smirked behind his hand. "So I'm their target, huh? They see me as a threat, and want to buy me off." He imagined Sang-jin's smug expression and thought, "One skilled player is worth more than 100 weaklings, and he knows it. He's trying to lure me with cash and comfort. How predictable." Still, curiosity twinkled in his eyes. If he's the head, maybe he's strong enough to make it worth copying. He chuckled softly. "I'll have to find out for myself." The clock on the cafe wall ticked to exactly 7 p.m. The minute and hour hands overlapped, and suddenly, the world shifted. The Tower of Trials has opened. The sky split apart as a colossal tower rose high above the clouds, stars twinkling around it like diamonds. In an instant, the players were transported to a new area, standing before a vast river, with floating islands hovering in the mist above. "Don't push," someone yelled. "This is insane, it's just like before." Smiling faintly, Jinhyuk looked around. Heh, they all look like rookies. A golden pouch appeared in the air before him. Reward, 100 tower coins granted for first entry. Coins jingled as they fell into his hand. "The game begins," Jinhyuk whispered, a grin spreading across his face. Golden coins showered from the sky, tinkling like rainfall. Notifications began to appear one after another before every player's eyes. System alert, record and upload your achievements publicly. Reward, 100 coins for every 10,000 views. Commission will vary based on player level. A glowing blue plus sign shimmered above the crowd. Another message followed. Warning, views from non-tower residents count only once per person. Choose carefully when watching videos. As players read through the notifications, chaos stirred. A man in a robe spread his arms wide before an army of monsters, activating his broadcast. System alert, live broadcast is available only during boss monster battles. Clearance required for next floor access. Elsewhere, an old warrior in heavy armor clenched his gauntlet fist as the minotaur before him roared loud enough to shake the air. A skull-shaped icon appeared with the word warning flashing in red. System notice, any falsified views or illegal actions will be penalized. Watching these alerts unfold, Jinhyuk rubbed his chin thoughtfully. So that's how it works. Outside the tower, city residents were glued to their phone screens, captivated. The live streaming system had turned into a bridge between two worlds, the people struggling to climb the tower, and those watching from the safety of reality. Millions tuned in, desperate to witness the tower's conclusion while unintentionally boosting view counts and income for the players. One popular video showed a warrior fighting through ancient pagodas, over 900 people were watching. Another showed a lone hero facing a dragon barehanded, over 1,200 viewers gasping in awe. Gold coins rained endlessly from above these viral streams. This system, a mix of survival and showbiz, was the most ingenious, most profitable feature of the challenge tower yet. Players rushed forward, shouting plans to raid the Goblin Cave first. "Let's clear it fast and farm some coins," someone yelled. The crowd surged like a flood. Someone bumped Jinhyuk's shoulder. He pushed them aside without a word, eyes narrowing as he watched the mass of overeager players scatter. "They're all in such a hurry," he muttered, standing still amidst the chaos. Trying to be first, without even knowing what's waiting for them. For Jinhyuk, earning coins wasn't a challenge, he already knew the system inside and out. But uploading videos? Sharing his strategies with the world? Not a chance. Even with rewards on the line, leaking information was a massive risk. One wrong clip, he thought, and my advantage is gone. Hands in his pockets, Jin-hyuk smirked. He already knew exactly what to do next. His road wasn't like the others, it was a different path entirely. He remembered that time long ago, after clearing the 30th floor. Progress had halted, leaving players stuck for months. Back then, he'd scoured the lower floors for hidden secrets, collecting fragments, solving puzzles, digging for answers that others missed. Now, torch in hand, Jin-hyuk pushed deeper into the dark dungeon. The flickering light revealed walls etched with ancient carvings. Every step he took was deliberate, calculated. But suddenly, his expression froze. The torch slipped from his grasp. His hand trembled with anger. Pathetic, he muttered bitterly. The truth struck him like a blade. His old self, the character he had built for years, was weak. Useless. A notification blinked in front of him. Confirm character deletion? Grinding his teeth, Jin-hyuk stared at the glowing text. Years of struggle, sweat, and sleepless nights, all wasted. But doubt was a luxury he could no longer afford. With a deep breath, he confirmed. Blue light enveloped his body, particles rising like stardust. His eyes blazed with determination. This time, he vowed, I'll reach the end. That had been 6 years ago. Now, standing before a colossal gate decorated with skulls and bones, he felt the same surge of anticipation. You have discovered, Level B, Labyrinth of Creep. Known for its extreme complexity and numerous traps. Crossing his arms, Jin-hyuk muttered, the key to breaking through beyond the 30th floor, starts here. He gritted his teeth. Didn't think I'd have to do this again. Touching the massive gate, blue runes flared to life. As it rumbled open, Jin-hyuk stepped inside. Ancient Greek murals stretched across the walls, depicting battles and monsters. At the entrance stood a stone bust of a bull, its cold eyes staring straight ahead. Seeing this familiar sight, Jin-hyuk smiled faintly. So it's the same as before. White butterflies drifted through the air, fluttering beneath the stone ceiling. One descended gracefully and landed on his finger. He chuckled softly. Still here, huh? But his brief calm shattered when he sensed movement behind him. Turning sharply, he saw a group approaching, their eyes gleaming with greed. Who are you? He asked coolly. A girl at the front smiled. We're just looking for a hunting spot. When we saw the labyrinth open, we thought we'd come in before it closed. 10 minutes earlier, the same group had watched as the massive gate opened by Jin-hyuk. A red-haired man among them had pointed. That guy, he knows something. Follow him. One of the squad members frowned. Why did that guy go straight into the labyrinth? He asked, baffled. And how the hell did he open it without a key? The others stared in disbelief. Opening a labyrinth without a key was unheard of. Looking down at the entrance, the girl with sharp eyes suggested, let's follow him. But the blond man folded his arms, clearly not convinced. We don't even know what kind of labyrinth it is, or how big it might be. Leaning casually against a tree, the girl countered, think, will you? You know what matters most at the start of the Tower of Tests. She glanced upward, explaining, if he opened the labyrinth without a key, it must mean it's on the first floor. That also means its difficulty level isn't too high. Watching Jin-hyuk disappear into the darkness, another squad member nodded thoughtfully. Makes sense, that's probably why it's possible at all. A labyrinth on the first floor would be much easier to unlock. A girl with pink bubblegum puffed out a bubble, smirking. You think that guy's going to share the loot with us? Her ally grinned. No chance. Her eyes gleamed. Then we'll just make sure he never leaves that dungeon. The squad chuckled as she turned toward the labyrinth entrance. We found an open labyrinth first. It's only fair we enter it. The others stepped up behind her, forming ranks. Besides, she continued sweetly, the more people we have, the safer it'll be. Jin-hyuk, watching them from the shadows, smirked. They're relying on numbers, he thought. Trying to outsmart me, huh? His eyes glowed faintly as a notification appeared before him. Eye of Truth activated. The girl stepped forward, confidently pointing to herself. I'm Park Hannah, 22. I made it up to the second floor of the Tower of Tests. A status window appeared. Park Hannah, skills, contact, quick step, weak healing, dot. Jin-hyuk's eyes flickered in interest. Contact, huh? That's interesting. The ability allowed her to form a natural closeness with someone she met for the first time, easing tension and awkwardness. The condition for copying that ability required being alone with the target for 240 hours. Remembering the woman with demonic wings, Jin-hyuk's lips curled. With that skill, I could probably control her. Then, one by one, the others introduced themselves. The red-haired guy behind Hannah spoke first. Jang Chulsik. barely survived the first floor. The girl in a lilac sweatshirt followed. Lee Hai-min. I've also only reached the first floor. Another girl, Jang Mina, blew another bubble. Third floor for me. The blonde crossed his arms. Min-guk. Never played the tower before. And finally, the bespectacled man scratched his head awkwardly. Kwangwoo, first time here too. Jin-hyuk smiled faintly. I'm Jin-hyuk, he said simply. As he turned away, his inner thoughts sharpened. They could stab me in the back any second. No point remembering their names. Suddenly, Park Hannah stepped closer and looped her arm through his. Jin-hyuk, she said sweetly, gazing into his eyes, which floor did you reach? Pressing against him, she activated her contact skill, level 1. Scarlet flower petals shimmered around them. Jin-hyuk looked amused. She's testing her skill on me. Hannah smiled, waiting for the bond to form. But her expression faltered. Huh? Why didn't it work? She whispered, surprised. Hiding her hands behind her back, she tried again, changing the topic. Then, can you tell us what kind of monsters are in this labyrinth? Jin-hyuk agreed easily, narrowing his eyes. Sure. But be ready. Above them, glowing butterflies fluttered as he spoke calmly. This labyrinth changes every hour. Its layout resets each time. The squad gasped. What? The ground trembled violently beneath them. Min-guk looked around, panicking. What's happening now? It's only a first-level labyrinth. Hannah shouted in disbelief. How can this? Her words cut off as giant stone blocks began emerging from the walls. Look out, someone yelled. One block smashed down right in front of her. Hannah dove to the side at the last second, barely avoiding it. Move, idiot! Chulsik shouted, pointing up. If you stay still, you'll die. Hannah looked up, just in time to see a massive slab of stone falling from above. It crashed into the floor, shaking the entire dungeon as dust and debris exploded around them. Alright guys, what do you think? Should I continue this manhwa or not? Be honest, I'm torn here. Drop your verdict in the comments, continue or not. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.